Hello there and welcome back. Today we talk about another small and simple and fun setup. So if you follow me, you know that I love both of these two tools here, the Syntakt and the Octatrack, probably two of my favorite instruments ever. One beef, you would say, that I have about the Syntakt is that you cannot change the note rotating the knob when you are on the trig page. So not going to change, it's not quantized. So for me that's a problem. So I thought, why don't I use the Syntakt as a sound module controlled by the Octatrack? Of course, I could use any other sequencer, but I am really proficient with the one in the Octatrack because I use that for my live performances, so I can really improvise. And more than that, it's interesting because I can sequence 4-track using even more, but I decided to sequence just 4-track using the Octatrack and then use some of the other tracks for rhythmic purposes. So I want to just show you how I set up things because I think it's a pretty fun system and it's self-contained and you can do a lot of stuff with just these two boxes. Of course, you can use just the Octatrack and do everything with it using sample, but for how I work, this combination is pretty nice and also easy to carry around. So what's happening here? Let's see. Let's start again so you hear nothing, right? Here it is. All the sounds come from the Syntakt. And I have just a couple of samples here that I can decide to turn on and off. If you're interested in knowing what is this glitchy part, I did a tutorial a couple of weeks ago, so check that out. So what I decided to do is like separating the sound, the rhythmic sound and the melodic sound from the Syntakt, sending one hard pan to the left and one hard pan to the right, so it can come into my input A and B, and then for each of these input I will have 2 tracks. So track 1 is listening to input A, and track 3 is listening to input B, and track 2 and 4 are my neighbor machine. As usual, this is the setup that I use most of the time. I have this 4-track for incoming audio, track 5 and 6 are for sample, track 7 is for resample, and track 8 right now is a master. When I use my Autobaum, sometime I like to use track 8 for another in that can be used for my 303 or whatever. But right now it's set up with that. So the fun part is like right now I can sequence the Syntakt in the way I sequence the Vermona, which is my favorite instrument, right? So what I did is like I set up the MIDI machine, track 1 through 4, to control track 9 to 12, that are the analog machine in the Syntakt. So to do that, you go in track 1, source, double click, when you are in MIDI page of course, and you have a channel. I go through 9, because 9 is this one. Then channel 10, channel 11, and 12 I'm using my impulse trick to create sort of, how you call it, percussion, right? So let's reset everything and let's create something. So you'll see why I love this way of doing. I'm muting everything. The other setup of the machine, I have the LFO for the glitch trick that is on my previous video, check that out. And then I set some other scene 13 to 15 using the freeze delay. Not that I use that a lot, but you know, I don't use scene honestly a lot so far, but I should actually use it more consistently because you can do crazy stuff with that. So I also decided to use the kick. I could have used a sample, but I love the kick on the Syntakt. So there's the track 1 that now is a kick. It's deep stuff. The setup on the Syntakt, simple. I just went on the MIDI page, sync, and get the transport to receive, because I want this to start. And then the MIDI channel are already set up, 1 through 12. So whatever MIDI channel you put here, it will play on the Syntakt. Super, super simple. And what sounds are using? So you can have a maximum of 3 row machine. That is the new machine that has been added that I really love. So I put it in 9, 10, 11. Simple sound. I try to mimic my Vermona. So what happened now? I set up also in a MIDI page, track 1 through 4. If you double click the amp page, you can quantize. So I quantize in C minor, as usual. And let's go. So I want to first deactivate the kick, right? That's gonna be sequenced in the Syntakt. So right now I can start placing triggers. Let's make these 16 step. So these are the first things I put, and if I had more, I can just rotate the knob here and the notes will be quantized. That's what I mean when I want this machine to do that. And I'm already somewhere. The cool part of the Syntakt sound that this raw machine now have a noise. So you have a dual oscillator. You can detune. I'm using just the wave. In this case, I'm using wave 1, which would be a sine wave, with some noise. And I love the sound because it had this rhythmical quality. So this one is hard panned on the amp page on right, and it goes into my input B. So I can add from the Octatrack some effects. What I am adding, as usual, even on this I did many tutorials, I have a filter on FX1, a delay on FX2, on track 3. On the neighboring track, I have a compressor, which is pretty good because it really pumps the volume and keep it consistent, and the dark reverb. Of course, one drawback here is like all the sound that will go into input B will have the same kind of effects, but that's fine to me. I decided to separate the rhythmical part because I don't want the kick to have the same delay or reverb or whatever. And when I turn on the kick, for example, I can decide different kind of effect going on. So this is usually what I do. I have the filter here that I can play. One next step for this setup would be to have a small controller like my N32 from Chic, so I can have the filter mapped. I didn't do that today because I'm lazy. So that's how I would do, and then I can start adding more things. And I can change, of course, how they sound. So selecting the track, I can, this one is using wave 1 still is a sawtooth. And then I can start adding track 3, that is 11, using a sine wave. In this case I use them both, with some detuning happening, filtered a lot, and some slower attack. And I can always mute. And this sounds pretty good to me. It's not same kind of vibe that the Vermona has, but what it does, it allows me to have a compact setup, and then I can add the kick, another instrument. And also then I can add my impulse. I set up this on 13 steps, so it creates a sort of changing. And I can also change the velocity, let's set fun. When I'm here, I can now start playing with the other effects that I have in the Octatrack. First, I have my freeze machine here, that I set up a different delay length. And then I have my scene here for the resampling track. So let's say I want to record now. I have track 7, I turn it on, I press yes. A plus appeared here, means that it's recording the main audio. And so now when I switch to scene B, I would have nothing. Why? Nobody knows. Ah, here it is. I have to add some slides. Great. And now, as you can hear, I have this glitchy thing. As you can see, that is made with the LFO. Again, tutorial made before. And this is nice because I can add a little of it. And prepare changes, I don't know, whatever. Let's add, for example, some more. This one. I never ever use snares, but I can go here and then come back and have the snare. And go on and on. So basically, this is a super fun way to improvise and keep building things. And then, of course, you can add your sample that I always have. I have a folder of sample that I like to use. And so on and on and on. All right. Then I can add effects on my master track if I want. which I pretty like. All right. That's it for today. What is the drawback of this system? Yeah, it's great for improvising, but you will always end up with a stereo recording on the DAW. So if you like then to have the chance to do some post-production editing, it's pretty complex, especially if you start using a lot of effects, because you can go very easily in some weird territory. So then it could be hard to, change what you really did, which is something that I enjoy because I like to take my risks. And yeah, whatever, it's fun, and it's really a great for live improvising performance. All right, I think that's it for today. I'll see you next week. Ciao.